Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, at the time I'm recording this, it's still fairly early, and the inquiry hasn't got underway today. Obviously, the big one, the boss is in, and questions will be asked. And boy, that video is definitely coming. But there's something that's been thrown up. We've got the article here, but there's something that's been thrown up about Kate Forbes' evidence, and that is these Gold Command meetings. And Kate said she was exceedingly surprised that there were no minutes taken. After all, these were decision-making meetings with very senior members of the cabinet. Now, I would suggest at the time, Kate Forbes, who was the finance secretary, would surely have counted as senior. And yet she wasn't in on these Gold Command meetings, which is why she hasn't got any recollection of them. She says no meeting, nobody knows what went on in them, apart from the people in there. She wasn't there. And you have to ask, why was someone like Kate Forbes not inside the tent, as it were? Perhaps even then, Nicola Sturgeon recognised Kate Forbes could be trouble. Her honesty, her integrity, in terms of telling the truth, as it were, because of her religious conviction, may prove problematic. Is that why she was not invited in? We'll take a look at this to see what's going on and see if anything will ever come out about these gold meetings. Probably not. But anyway, we'll take a look. Here goes. This is one of those things where you can infer from incomplete data sets. You can see what the picture is by what the missing part is. And not having Kate Forbes in these meetings kind of indicates that they not only weren't taking the minutes because they don't want records, but they don't want someone who may spill the beans because of what was going on within those meetings. They wanted it to be a very closed little set of controllable people who were all in it together, and whom, if one broke, they'd all hang. And they knew. And so they kept this little coterie of confidence, this conspiratorial circle, to small, close and tight. And they didn't want outsiders in. And I think they actually saw Kate Forbes as a threat, as an outsider, and as someone who would, let's say, compromise the conspiracy of what was going on. I don't think Kate Forbes, for all her other faults, I don't think she would have stood up and been happy to go along with, say, for example, the mass murder of the elderly. But anyway, what were Nicola Sturgeon's shadowy Gold Command meetings that shunned Kate Forbes? The former finance secretary and one-time SNP leadership hopeful and likely next leader said she wasn't even aware of the small summits that may have had a huge impact on Scotland's COVID response. No, nobody knew what was going on except that little group at the top, that little conspiratorial bunch of potential murderers, maybe allegedly. They kept that very much to themselves. They kept it very quiet for obvious reasons. Barlinnie is not the place that the likes of Swinney wants to spend. You've heard of Elf on the Shelf. You'll have Swinney in Barlinnie, won't you? The UK COVID inquiry is continuing in Edinburgh, and the bombshells just keep coming for the SNP. Kate Forbes, who was the finance minister throughout the darkest days of the pandemic, was in Edinburgh to give evidence yesterday. Not the biggest fan of the current Nat leadership, she no doubt took some pleasure in delivering a few doozies of her own. Perhaps the biggest one was the fact she wasn't invited inside Nicola Sturgeon's inner sanctum, despite holding the second most important brief in government. This is it. She was a senior person, and yet she had no admittance to Nicola Sturgeon's inner sanctum. And you can make your own jokes up, folks. But she should have been. Under any other circumstance, she would have been at the core of this. She would have had to know the costs involved, this, that, the other, the planning, and they didn't. And that is in itself evidence of conspiracy. One of the very few. Let's just say that we all know that Kate Forbes is not Miss Perfect. She's fine. But in terms of the SNP, she is technically one of the better ones. Certainly, I think one of the most... she has integrity. I don't think anyone can doubt that she has the integrity of her religious conviction. Let's put it that way. And I think they realised that. This group realised that, and they knew they couldn't bring her in. And I think that in itself is evidence of a conspiracy. That and the phones, as we mentioned earlier, evidence of a conspiracy. And it's a conspiracy to do what? Now, I believe it's a conspiracy to murder the elderly. I believe that that was a deliberate policy to try and eradicate opposition to independence. It's my personal belief. Can't be sued for it. But I think if that's the case, it does explain why she wasn't in. As Finance Secretary, Ms Forbes held the purse strings throughout the crisis, but she admitted on Tuesday that she'd never been privy to the so-called Gold Command meetings. The defeated SNP leadership hopeful said she wasn't even sure that I was aware they existed. She added, I would have expected to be invited to any meeting where there were significant financial implications. Well, yes, as the Finance Secretary, you'd think so. It has bolstered claims that Ms Sturgeon ruled government with an iron fist and took key decisions with little input from her team. And that's key, because if it's the case, and everyone says, no, they're going to have to look for someone to blame. And because of that tightness, because she ruled, because no one can ever gainsay magnificent leaderine, then ultimately the buck stops with her. Everybody's going to point the finger, and they are not going to point the finger at themselves. So that finger will always point to Sturgeon. Sturgeon's going to carry the can, if anyone is. But Freeman and Swinney, they're there as well. They're all in it. The Gold Command meetings, also known as Gold or Gold-type meetings, were secret chats between the former First Minister, Deputy First Minister Swinney, and other Cabinet Secretaries with policy advisors. They would typically take place over a weekend or on the Monday before the Cabinet met on a Tuesday. Secret, sleek it, snide, hidden, cryptic. No one knew. No minutes, no records. Nothing. It was a cabal of cover-up. This is the conspiracy. This is like that meeting when the top sort of people in the National Socialists, got to be careful, you can't say certain words, the top people in the National Socialists all met at that little chateau and decided, what can we do with the Jews? What's the final solution? And that is this. This is the final solution meetings that they had. Only they weren't looking at the Jews, although that may well come under Hamzi Yusef, of course, but they were looking at the elderly, and that is a problem. Despite their importance, no minutes or records were kept from the meetings, meaning that what was discussed and potentially decided at them will never likely be revealed, not without enhanced interrogation techniques. Perhaps we should Guantanamo Bay these bastards and find out the real truth. I would be up for that, and I'm pretty sure most of you would be up for that. Can you imagine, putting the old wet towel and pouring the water over Nicola Sturgeon's face? It's been confirmed that Hamzi Yusef did attend some of the summits, so he is involved as well. So he is now officially part of the conspiracy, and I believe that that conspiracy potentially was allegedly the conspiracy to murder. Is he involved as well? It wouldn't surprise me. We know he doesn't mind Hamas murdering Jews, so a few old people should come quite easy to him, I'd imagine. Others likely to have been invited include Jean Freeman, definitely was there. She was the health secretary at the start of the pandemic. That's when she wasn't on her little burner phone. Looking to defend the meetings, Mr Yusef said there were times when the former First Minister needed a tighter cast list. He means a small clique to maintain the conspiracy. She wanted to make a decision on a very specific issue. She made the decision. He just said it there, where she wanted to make the decision on a very specific issue. Whatever was discussed, it seems certain to remain a mystery, with no notes surviving despite the importance of the gatherings, and none of them will say, because none of them want to spend the remainder of their miserable, worthless lives in a prison cell, sharing it with her on the right. I think Kate Forbes is absolved from the worst of it, because it's all those at the gold meetings that are the true conspirators. There needs to be a trial for conspiracy, and it cannot be done by the Scottish Government or the Scottish authorities. It's got to be a UK-led one, and it's got to be the Old Bailey, and these people need to be put up, because if you commit a crime, even if you commit a crime in Scotland, you can still be tried at a higher court. It's got to be that. For something like that, this is a crime against humanity. Take them to the damn Hague. Take them to the Hague and do them there, and then shove them in some shithole prison for the remainder of their natural lives. I'm coming up. I think the more that comes out, the more obvious it is that there is a conspiracy. Obviously, the phones themselves, massive evidence of a conspiracy. But when you're getting the second most important briefing in government banned from meetings because that second most important person is deemed to be ethical, honest, religious, and will not go along with the mass murder of many thousands of people potentially, the strength to call for an investigation into conspiracy to murder is growing. And I can't see how anyone, other than your absolute swivel-eyed loon SNP supporters, who are worthlessly stupid anyway because they just mindlessly go, SNP, 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 it's their burying granny. Other than those, everybody now must be moving towards the fact that there is something there. This is not innocent. This is not the behaviour of innocent people. These are not the actions of innocent people. These are the actions of criminals. These are the actions of a covert conspiracy, hidden, quiet, small, using very dodgy forms of communication, whispers with hands over mouths so that nobody can read lips. You see this. This is organised crime, but this is organised crime against humanity. And I do think, genuinely, this needs to go to the Hague and it needs to be presented. And these people need to be locked up for the remainder of their lives. What they've done isn't just the ending of a human life. It is, in my belief, one of the worst crimes since the Second World War. And equal to the crimes of the Second World War, because what was done was that kind of crime. And I said yesterday, when you're locking elderly, vulnerable people into a room and throwing in disease-carrying people, knowing that the outcome is likely to be lots of deaths, that has got to be... If that happened during war, it would be a war crime. You'd hang. We don't have that option, unfortunately. Anyway, I'll stop there and come up. There's many more videos I need to do. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, stay bloody angry, and stay watching. And I'll speak to you later. Bye.